Welcome, everyone, to the next normal. I'm your host, Sister Jenna. Whether you're in the United States or all the way to Africa or Australia, whatever time of day it is for you, Om Shanti. Welcome to our space of healing. And I might be sounding a little stuffy, as you know, this week. I've been under the bug. But I'm still here. I'm still here for you, for myself too. It's my own healing as well. And this week, since I've been kind of bedridden, I've been somehow the emergence of injustices and inequality and disrespect that we exude to each other ever so often percolated in my consciousness for the past week and a half since I've been a little under the weather. And I used that time to go deep into the why. Why have we become a society of human beings that are now being replaced by AI because we can't get along? And if you think about it, even getting used to AI and using that more than using our characteristics, using our virtues, our values, our ingenuity, our specialities, when we stop using them, we eventually dumb down, which means we are controlled by particular powers that might be. We stop thinking. And I've been watching our journey throughout time. And I'm even watching the journey that we're on currently, that you can sit at home like you are now, or at work, or maybe you're driving in the car as the passenger, or you're in an Uber taxi, and you're watching me right now, that if you're not discerning of the things that I share with you, you automatically just keep believing whatever people tell you, without putting things in context to find your own personal meaning. For this week, I've looked on our prejudices. I focused it on the self, that it's important for you first to identify what are you prejudiced of. And it could start as simple as the color of your own skin, the quality of your hair, the color of your eyes, your religion, that you might carry your own prejudices wishing you didn't look like this, that you didn't sound like this. Let's say if you come to an English-speaking country and your native language was Hindi, when you hear the mixture of the dialect of an Indian speaking English, it's always very unique. It's similar to a Chinese person speaking English. It's very unique. An African person, a Spanish person, until the environment and the interactions with the individuals that speak English dominate the experience of the cultural heritage, that they can speak clearly, sort of like I do. And so I've looked at the prejudices, because at the root cause of racism started internally within a human being. And if we try to transform, eradicate, dismantle, or even heal our racism externally, it will come back again, kind of like weed in your lawn. No matter if you cut it on the top, if you haven't removed the weed from the root, it will grow back. It's the same issue for racism. And so we're looking at racism today in the context of how to heal it, because it will always start with you first before you point your finger outward. So I just bring us back to our first show, which was on prejudices and checking yourself about what those are within you. And the other show I focused on, Is Race Important? And I featured the context of, for so many years, we've been filling out forms informing governments of our gender, our age, our language, our nationality, our ethnicity, with the intent that once they know where a majority of specific individuals reside, they will be able to offer the rightful things needed to increase the growth and the productivity and the success for that particular neighborhood, city, state. And up until today, we don't have that equality in the United States of America, and I don't know if it's also been, I don't know if it's succeeded in your countries, but in the USA, it's not happened yet. And it's not a matter of governments not having enough funding, because if you look at history and you look at now, America herself has the ability to lend billions of dollars to other nations to protect their borders. That means America itself has a lot of money to help its citizens to protect and grow itself. And it might require so much awareness, because it first starts spiritually, internally, in order to grow a society. But if you can always offer opportunities in countries for people to work hard, play hard, educate their children well, and impose good values and virtues on them, I suspect you'll find a thriving country. I believe so. I've seen it within my own Brahma Kumaris and Kumaris community, that if each person that studies with us has an opportunity to serve, they feel extremely secure, seen, valued, and they recognize the importance of their characteristics, their integrity, their principles, their values, their virtues, when it comes into action to help another person, to take care of the environment, to feed the starving, or to clothe the homeless, whatever might be the situation. In our community, we are advocating the quality of the person, the quality of the personality of that soul in action. So I think about our spiritual cure to heal racism in these times, and how to be able to break out of the consistent narrative, black and white policies. You don't do this, you're not doing that. He's a racist, she's a racist. Women don't have enough, women aren't paid enough. Why can't there be a woman president by now in America? America's too male chauvinistic. All the things that I hear all of this because of my global influence. And you sit back for a little and you wonder, why? What stops this country that has this ideology of thriving and bringing people from all walks of life on its land to dream and to thrive and to build as much as that individual wishes to do so in the United States? They've always had the freedom to do it. Whether they felt ostracized or whether they felt that they were being judged or criticized or pushed back, if they worked hard, and many did, they still thrived and they still became successful stories. Elon Musk was an immigrant. majority of the leaders in these technology countries who were Indians were immigrants. And when you hear even their stories of how they came over with very little, they thrived. Despite whatever they thought were some of the pushbacks, they thrived. Whether they thought that white individuals made it difficult for them to climb up the ladder, or black individuals, or brown individuals, or Asian individuals made it difficult for them to progress, they still went beyond it. Take a look at the African American race in the United States of America. When you go back to their stories from the transatlantic journey of what they endured in the ships and being stolen from their land or forced from their land or betrayed by their own kings of their land, and coming into this whole different world and being bought and sold and working in the fields, they still have thrived in this country despite the color of their skin. And so if you allow the color of your skin and the indoctrination on the belief systems of what other individuals might impose on you because of their ignorance, it will hold you back, and it will be a very painful journey. Because you look at the data, and governments and rulers all over the globe know where everyone is, who everyone is, and how they can support their towns and villages to thrive. Not a single city should be suffering economically today, because there is enough money to go around. And so why isn't it? And why are certain groups of people being pushed back from growth and development, which makes it much more challenging for them to achieve success? There needs to be a healing, despite whatever are the obstacles that come in front of you. And the law of nature has proven to you and me that when anything is difficult and you have had to struggle your way through it, nobody can topple you when you get to the top, because you have the experience of what you've endured and how you've endured it, and that now you've arrived. The experience in you is your power. The experience that you carry from your struggle is your power, versus someone who has not had to work very hard. They have no idea of what it means to have backbone and grit, determination to keep going, because everything has been so easy for them. They have a different mindset when it comes to empathy, compassion, openness, trust, mindfulness, service, sacrifice. It's a different world for those people, and they deserve that. That's on their cup of tea. That's their birth at this time. But let's take a look at racism now and the healing that it requires. And again, it will always begin with you. I went around and I asked about 10 friends in the last week, are you a racist? And everybody selected, I gave them, are you a racist, on a number from 1 to 10. And everybody maybe just answered me 2, maybe because my friends are so exposed that, they won't give me a 10. But when you think about what it means to be a racist, again, it starts with your own prejudices and biases that you hold for yourself, the members in your family. There are certain family members whose brother or sister might be lighter skin or darker skin, and they will be spoken about in the family behind their backs. Some who might have healthy hair, such as easier manageable hair, or hair that we would call, if you're in Africa, or African American or African Caribbean, She has nappy hair, coarse hair, thick hair. It's harder to comb. There will be prejudices of that in your family. It's such an incredible story. And so when you look at the cure, the spiritual, innate, deep cure that we have to go through as a nation and as a world, it has to start with the individual being truthful with themselves and start a journey of observing every day. If you make these judgmental comments, or if you live with a lot of bias in you about colors, shapes, sizes, religions, if you see an Islamic person walking around in the supermarket, do you make a judgment in your mind? An Asian person, an African American person, a Caucasian American. Do you make a judgment on anyone that you see? Somebody who might be overweight or somebody who is underweight, too skinny. Are there any judgments in your mind? It starts there. And the moment you catch yourself judging another child of God, you know you're serving your prejudice, you're serving your racism, and you're adding to the sore, the cancer, the sickness that is covering our planet. So the flip side to this, have you felt yourself ever just free of judgment, biases, first starting with yourself, then with the ones that you lived with, and then in your society, in your country, your city, your state? Have you been able to experience being a human being free of that experience in your soul? I'm inviting you to try it. Who would you be today without prejudice? How would you look through your eyes, not feeling that anyone is less or greater than you? How would you think about your government? If you deeply carry the vibration and the frequency inside of you, they're going to do right by this nation. They will do right. Because there are times that we can point our finger at government as long as we want. But if you're not being even more productive and more of a contributor to your country's growth and development emotionally, spiritually, and physically, you are equally a part of the problem, and sometimes government doesn't have the wherewithal to give you everything you need. You too are not clear. And you too have to do the work on purifying your own nature and your own biases. Because I believe that when government begins to see citizens not easily swayed by deception or misinformation or fake news, they will think secondly about the way they message their stories to us. The media will begin to think again as to why they chase after ratings, speaking to our lower vibrational frequency. Because a lot of people will stop watching the news. And if people stop watching the news, they'll have to pull back and begin to find different ways of doing news stories. Because people don't want to be fed misinformation anymore to take away the power that they carry as God's children. So the healing of racism will always start with one's self. And so if you watch yourself judging, criticizing, blaming governments, presidents, elections, family members, other countries, religions. Check yourself first. See what it will require for you to heal your racist self. Though that part of you that has a prejudice within you, it will take a lot of check and change. You have to keep checking in order to make a change. If you're not checking, there's nothing to change. There's just reaction. Are you with me on that? So the question is, what and how would you envision your world, your life, if you didn't have any recording or any experience within you of bias or prejudice, criticism about other groups and people? What if you did that work? And so in the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, the first class in its teachings, consider yourself a soul. 8 billion souls inhabit this earth. Each of these souls come with a pre-recording of a part that they have come here to play. While being here, we have this enormous, fantastic, amazing opportunity to enjoy the game and live the highest potential and the highest capacity that you could possibly achieve. And if you try to compete with those entrenched with the vibration of algae, my famous acronym, anger, lust, greed, attachment, and ego, unless you're super experienced in those 5 vices, then fight on. Have a great time. Knock yourself out. It's kind of like those 2 fighters that just fought, Mike Tyson and another guy, and they lost. I don't know the whole story, but Mike Tyson was a famous fighter from my days, and then there's another guy, I think his name is Paul or something, but from what I've heard, they both fought, and the irony to this equation, even though one lost and one won, the amount of millions of dollars these individuals got in the sport, which is to beat someone up until they're either unconscious or knocked down, it just goes to show me how far from our truth we've become. I'm not knocking whatever they've done and serving, but we won't get over the ways of the world if we still feed into stories and illusions that aren't about uplifting humanity. A little bit off course as I'm speaking about this Mike Tyson fight and how many millions of dollars that they received for being in a ring and fighting and having people behind them backing them to market this ideology and to be able to distribute millions of dollars to those 2 men. How many millions of dollars did they earn for that show? I look at our show. It's inspiring. It's changing you. It is inviting you to be a contributor to the establishment and the upliftment of a better society. Do we have a lot of people backing us? Do we have a big marketing team saying, yay, push this, let's go? Are there people just donating every day saying, we want to keep you going here, we're going to donate this much every day to your project and to your program so that it rises up? Why is it that they don't do that? And I know what our show offers, and I know that it makes you think differently. There aren't millions of people backing me to make the next normal a #1 show. We have to keep spending to keep it going. Do you see, nothing is making sense anymore. Racism doesn't make sense. Racism shouldn't make sense in the 21st century if you are understanding who you are and what's best for you and the generations behind you. That when you educate your children and when you have serious conversations with them about life and about racism, and you show them the kind of sorrow and suffering it creates, not only in the oppressee, but in the oppressor, that's not an energy to contribute to. It eventually will destroy or self-destruct. And even if you're with individuals that do make a racist remark or comment, you point it out to them and you say, you know what? There's a better way you could have said that. And I don't think all white people or all black people are like that. Honestly, I don't believe it. Do you? Be specific about a person's behavior and attitude towards you, but don't group them into a whole race and say all black people are like this, all white people are like this. It's not true. So here's my advice. Start your healing journey today. Work on yourself first, very quietly, very privately. Write on a piece of paper all of your biases that you hold for yourself, the prejudices that you hold for yourself, secondly, for your family. It can be as simple as your child might exude behavior that doesn't make it seem like they're very smart or they'll do good in school. And you might walk around in the family and says, he ain't very smart, he's dumb. No, that has to stop. Because it makes it 10 times harder for him or her to believe that they will ever be good enough. Do you hear what I'm saying? You get it? Do the homework on the self. Write down your biases, your prejudices. Check and change throughout the day. If you get a thought first, don't even let it come into words. If it comes into words, it was too late. Then you go back and you do the work. But throughout the day, check and change. Check, what am I thinking? Why did I think of her like that? Check and change. You have to change it if you have checked. There was bias, there was prejudice, you were being a racist, you weren't having good wishes for the person. Okay? And like I did in the previous show too, there needs to be a spiritual race now. I want to be a part of the race that is spiritual. And I hope your heart can feel that as I say that to you. That if you were to ever put down on a sheet of paper what your race is, or anybody asks you, what is your ethnicity, what's your race? It's a spiritual one. My parents are spiritual, it's a spiritual race. They were born in India, and they were born in Africa, in Jamaica, and they've come to America to live. And we are advocating for spiritual values, universal values, virtues and principles that uplift many generations behind us. I ask you to think of it in that context and see how it makes you feel. It's time for us to heal racism in this country, and if we don't, then I guess we're just going backwards. And I've not met anyone walking backwards, nor do I see the clock ticking backward. It's unnatural. It's unnatural. And it will create difficulties and obstacles that we don't need. So let's keep going forward. And let us keep looking inside of ourselves to see what is needed to really change ourselves. Check it first and then change. Remember, change will always start with you first before you even expect anyone outside of you to change. Do the interior work first, okay? All right, I've went on long enough, and I'm thinking, why don't we just pause here for a meditation and just take a breath and dive into what I've shared. See if something touched your heart today. Here's a meditation.
Being myself. I imagine that I am an actor. The scenes of the day have ended. The curtains have been drawn. I see myself stepping off the stage. I have played many roles, filled with many expectations. It's time to return to my true self, the inner being. I become still and silent inside. I resonate with the silence and the total stillness within.
Wonderful. I hope you liked that very much. I would love for Santosh to take me to an AI interpretation, such as how do we heal racism? So can we heal racism? Healing racism is a complex and deeply transformative process that involves individual, systemic, and societal change. While racism has deep historical and structural roots, healing is possible through conscious efforts, education, and the collective will to create equity and understanding. Here are some approaches. Individual transformation, absolutely. That's been my whole focus all week. Systemic change, and I think it should happen simultaneously. Societal efforts, very good. Spiritual and emotional healing. There's a brokenness inside of many of us that we're not able to talk about without feeling worthless. But we're not worthless if we're trying to come out of the rubble. Commitment to ongoing work, very true. A vision for the future. Healing racism is about building a world where everyone can thrive, regardless of their race or background. I've been mentioning that throughout the whole week. By addressing racism at every level, personal, systemic, and cultural, we can create a more just and loving society. Healing is possible, and it will require us all to be part of the solution. And what steps resonate with you most and how you can contribute to this healing? Well, that's entirely up to you. Okay? All right, thank you all so much. I'd like to move us into the Sister Gita effect as she shares with us something sweet and authentic and healing.
Talking to the self. When you talk to yourself in your mind, which self do you address and how? Usually people do not talk to their divinity, but to the most superficial aspects of their everyday personality. And often it's a stream of fears, complaints, and a mindless repetition of old things. If we talked that way to another person, we would have to apologize. Learning to talk properly to the self is a spiritual endeavor. Thoughts from the past and worries about the future do not create a good conversation. Instead, learn to talk to your mind as if it were a child. Talk to it with love. If you just force a child to sit down, he won't. A good mother knows how to prompt her child into doing what she wants. Be a good mother to your mind. Teach it good thoughts so that when you tell it to sit quietly, it will. Love your mind. Stay happy with it.
Thank you, Sister Gita. I miss you sometimes. It's been a few months now since she has passed, and I can't tell you what it feels like to have her a part of our show. Today's Avyakt signal is always have the thread of a detached observer tied on your wrist, and there will very quickly be success in everything you do. A task that takes a month now will take you just an hour. Just as you tie this sacred thread of pure thoughts, pure intention on others, in the same way you tie this sacred thread on yourself of being a detached observer. To the extent that you remain a detached observer and loving, to that extent you will be an image that inspires many others to change. All right, that is just perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us for another Next Normal session. It means the world to us. Do know that this week of focusing on racism is about a spiritual cure. It is to turn the attention on ourselves first before we blame anyone for being a racist. Everyone has permission to be whoever they want to be. But my wish and our wish here, raise your worth, raise your vibrations. You're God's child, God's children. Listen to your conscience, it won't lie to you. And I leave you with this question to check and change, to help you to heal if you do have even a slight percentage of racism in your bones. What does love want me to do here? How does love want me to see this person? Talk to this person. Think about this person. Your racism will heal. Your conscience will tell you the right thing to do. And God will give you a multitude of blessings. And life will be the most beautiful experience you'd have ever experienced. Thank you for joining us on The Next Normal, everyone. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Practice loving everybody the same. And I deeply am grateful for you to take the time to spend with me every day. All the best. Om Shanti.